was a moment in the famous Rumble in the Jungle when George Foreman was punishing Muhammad Ali with just about everything he had. Suddenly, Ali asked, "That the best you got, George?" Foreman would later admit, yeah, that was pretty much it. Ali won that fight, and years later, he won the friendship of Foreman. The two remained close until Ali's death Friday. Foreman was hit hard by the news. He's spent the weekend talking about Ali's legacy. Foreman says what made Ali great was not so much his physical gifts, but his mental strength.
Muhammad Ali didn't have a lot of muscles. He wasn't all that strong. I'd been in a ring with stronger human beings, but this man's presence dominated that fight. That presence, you could hit him where you hit everyone else, but he was not willing to fall.
Now, it has been 35 years since Ali's last fight, yet his impact in the sport of boxing is still felt to this day. He did things in the ring that no one to this day does, yet that doesn't stop some aspiring fighters from trying. Muhammad Ali never stepped foot inside Louisville TKO boxing, but his footprints are all over Jeffrey Clancy.
I mean, he's from where I'm from. You know, I walk the streets, I'm like, I wonder if Muhammad Ali walked the same exact route that I'm walking in right now.
The 17-year-old Clancy, as well as his peers at the gym, weren't alive to see Ali fight in his heyday. But make no mistake, they know who he is and why Ali will forever be the champ.
You know, there's a lot of great fighters, but what separated him from others is what he did outside the ring.
Ali cared about more than just himself. He cared about his people, he cared about his community, and he cared about people that were less fortunate.
James Dixon is the founder of Louisville TKO Boxing. Dixon says Ali's skills still translate success in the sport today.
Ali had great feet in the ring, and he had a great jab, and you have to have both to win at the pro level.
Ironically, what also made Ali great was the stuff most boxers wouldn't dare try.
You don't get taught to pull your head back and jab, but, you know, with his athleticism and his length, he got away with it, you know. And I've never seen another fighter that can get away with it.
It's kind of a boxer's sin to move that much in the ring. You know, they don't want it to happen, but, you know, I do that like he does.
Hey, if you're going to emulate someone, it might as well be the greatest. Time for Sports Page. Eric Crawford joining me right now. You know, in sports, we talk about the trinity of greatness. You have Michael Jordan, you have Babe Ruth, and you have Muhammad Ali. And what's interesting about those three guys is, Eric, other guys have better statistics, yet we consider those three the absolute best. Why is that?
Well, I don't know why with Jordan, but I guess he had such an impact on the game of basketball. But Ruth was a part of the culture. He became, and even after his career, he traveled the country. He was face-to-face with people. He was so accessible to people. And that's one of the things with Muhammad Ali. Think about getting out of his car and walking the length of Fifth Avenue in Manhattan, or getting out and walking the streets of Louisville when he was a champion of the world. Athletes just don't do that very often. They certainly don't do it today. He was accessible to people. He was accessible to media. He had cameras around him all the time. You mentioned you've been watching a lot of documentaries. I've been watching a lot of Ali documentaries in the last few days, and the reason there are so many of them is that he gave so much access to himself so generously. And then the main thing is, he proclaimed himself the greatest.
Yes,
that's the key. He said, I'm the greatest, and it stuck.
You know, it's funny you talk about the documentaries of Ali, and I know he liked the attention, but at the same time, you got to believe he knew that ultimately this would help his longevity of people remembering him for years and years and years, even after he's gone.
Absolutely. He said he had a mind for history, and let's not forget this, he had a role in this country's history that went far beyond sports, and it was far beyond the civil rights movement, which he had in the 60s. He came back, he was part of the government, talked to him when there were hostages in Iran. He had 15 hostages freed during the first Gulf War when he went to Iraq and met personally with Saddam Hussein. So he had a political role to play, he had a social role to play, and then at the end of his life, when he couldn't communicate as well, that silence is also very powerful, because people could then give whatever meaning they thought was good to him. He didn't necessarily give it voice, but he represented so many different things to different people.
Much more coming up on Muhammad Ali all week right here on WDRB, and of course online at WDRB.com. All righty, when we return, we'll turn our attention to baseball, the Cards. Moving on to the Super Regionals, Katie George has reaction from Jim Patterson Stadium next. Louisville Cardinals making it look easy at regionals this weekend. 2 games, 2 easy wins, 1 more today. And the Cards Moving on to the Super Regionals. Louisville taking on Wright State. The Raiders earlier in the day knocked out Ohio State, so they had some momentum, but they didn't have Nick Solak. Top four, Solak puts the Cards on the board first with his 2-run homer. Solak was just getting started. Next inning, Solak at it again. RBI single to left. Logan Taylor in to score. Solak went 3 for 4 on the day, and the Cards were up 3-0. Drew Harrington, he didn't have 10 strikeouts like Brennan McKay did yesterday, but he was solid nonetheless. Went 7 1/3, gave up 5 hits, no runs, also had 5 strikeouts. And Dan McDonald feeling good. Cards did give up 1 run, but it did not matter. 9th inning, final out, Corey Ray. That's it. Louisville wins 3-1. Cards moving on to the Super Regionals for the 4th straight year. And for more on that, here's Katie George. And the Super Regional, of course, right back at Jim Patterson Stadium. One more baseball note before we go. The Bats lost for the 5th time in 6 games this evening at home at Slugger Field. Louisville falling to Rochester today with a final count of 8-6. The Bats on the road for the next 7 games. They start a 4-game series at Syracuse starting on Monday. And finally, soccer, Louisville City beat Orlando City B tonight 4-3. That's sports. I'm Mike Lissette. Have a good night.